Welcome to the University of Wolverhampton Law School. My name's Linda Panesar and I'm head of the law school here. Today I'm joined with my colleagues Margaret Walsh, who's head of undergraduate legal studies, and Lynn Ellison, who's a senior lecturer in law. And what we're going to be doing today is two main things in this presentation. Talk a little bit about the law school and why you should really consider Wolverhampton Law School as a place to do your law studies, particularly your LLB or a joint degree in law. And then in the latter part of the presentation today, we'll talk about an interesting area of criminal law, and my colleagues, Margaret and Lynn, will take you through some aspects of homicide. So can we have the next slide, please? So the law school, we have the Wolverhampton Law School, and we've had over 50 years of teaching law at undergraduate and postgraduate. And I always say to prospective students like yourself or applicants who are thinking about studying law, you can't beat experience. And 50 years is a long time. So we've taught LLB, we've taught postgraduate courses, the legal practice course, a whole host, and more recently we've developed quite a strong apprenticeship profile. We're a really big expanding law school, and we look forward to seeing more and more students coming into our school and graduating with a very good law degree and moving on to practice. The second point, as you can see on the presentation slide here, is that all of our programs are validated by the professional regulatory bodies. So those bodies for law students are the Solicitors Regulation Authority and the Bar Standards Board. Now what this means is that our courses have to meet quite rigorous standards. So we have to make sure that we have minimum stocks in terms of library, that you have a particular validated program that covers all the requirements needed to go into practice. And I'll come back to this in another slide. But what I'm just saying here is that we are regulated and our programs are validated and allow you to move on to the next stage of training. So if we could have the next slide. So what are the key things for any student or applicant who's thinking about applying to a law school is to have a look at a whole host of things. You know, the surroundings, will I be comfortable in the school? Who will I be taught by? And as you can see from the first point, the school is very proud to have, really good tutors who are leading in their areas of expertise. And one of the expertise you'll see later on in this presentation is in the areas of criminal law. But it's more than criminal law. We have internationally recognized research in areas of commercial law, international insolvency, domestic insolvency, financial regulation, criminal evidence. And I could give you loads of examples. One of the most recent examples is one of our professors, Professor Peter Walton, recently was asked to write the insolvency rules for the Kenyan government. And that's quite a massive achievement funded by the World Bank. Not just Pete Walton, but we have a number of other lecturers. We have one of the leading lecturers here in criminal evidence who's written extensively on criminal evidence. But that's just a flavour of a whole host of tutors who are not only teaching but also researching into law. So with the next point, yeah. I think the next 2 points are really, really important points, which I would emphasize as head of the school. One of the things you will experience when you come to our law school is that there's a great emphasis on clinical, practical-based legal study. So one of the things we don't do is just put you into a lecture theatre and tell you lots and lots of law. I mean, that's very important. You need to understand where the law comes from and what the law actually tells us. For example, what does property law tell us? What does criminal law tell us? But what we are very keen on doing, and we pride ourselves, is to give clinical, practical, legal experience. And we can do that. We've got strong links with the profession. So throughout your 3 years with us, or 4 years, if you decide to come onto the foundation and then move on to the LLB or start the LLB, you'll have lots of opportunities to get involved with clinical practice-based legal studies. So you'll have the opportunity to advise the community working with our legal advice clinic. We work strongly with the local council. We have a very interesting scheme with the local courts where you can participate and advise court users as to what is expected. And as I say, with the growth of our apprenticeship, we have strong links with the law profession. All the law regional firms are working with us as a school, and that's got to be good for you as a student because you're going to be spending quite a lot of money on your legal studies. So it's basically, what is the outcome of me completing my law degree? So if we could have the next slide, please. So why Wolverhampton? I think this is an important question. Why should I think about Wolverhampton? Because undoubtedly you'll have all sorts of other universities in your mind. But why should I really think about coming to Wolverhampton? Well, one of the things I can tell you as head of the law school is that we are sector leading in terms of training lawyers for the needs of tomorrow's legal services. We were one of the first universities to develop the new pathway to becoming a solicitor, otherwise known as a solicitor's qualifying examination. And if you want to find more about that, please do contact us, and my colleagues later on will tell you ways in which you can contact us. But we have devised an LLB which is fit for purpose, and it is a preparatory course for you. So it's important that you are in the right institution, because obviously your graduate outcome is going to be very key for you. So moving on, we have the next slide, which basically builds on what I've already said. All students throughout the degree are offered practical based learning opportunities, and when we say all students, we do mean all students. Okay, and we can do that because of our strong links with the profession, business and local government. We are a law school that is very hands-on. We look after our students. We like to think of us as a family law school. The students are key. So it is a very pleasant environment to be in. You'll get very good one-to-one support. So that's all I have to say in terms of the school, and I really do look forward to welcoming you to our law school. I'm going to hand over to my colleagues now, who will talk a little bit about homicide and the kind of things you might get to do in a law school. So if I can hand over to my colleague. So Margaret, are you taking over here?
Yes. Hello everybody, and I'm, as my colleague has said, one of the members of staff at the University of Wolverhampton Law School, and myself and my colleague Lynn Ellison, we're going to do a very short little taster session to get you to think about homicide. Homicide and criminal law is often the prime reason why students think initially that they have an interest in law. So first of all then, I'm going to just cover very briefly with you what you understand about murder. And I think it's a subject that everybody thinks they know what murder is. It's one of those things that you think, well, yes, I'd know a murder if I saw it. But what I want you to think about is that clearly murder wouldn't involve an accidental killing, and nobody would want it to, but it would also not involve a negligent killing. So in those tragic circumstances, perhaps where somebody is killed as a result of negligence in a medical setting, again, there may well be criminal liability, but we wouldn't want that to be murder. Similarly, even if there is recklessness, that too won't constitute murder. In order to be murder, it has to involve intention. And that means that there has to be either an intention to kill the victim or an intention to cause grievous bodily harm, which is really serious harm. And that part is actually quite straightforward. Where it gets more complicated is where the individual says, that wasn't my intention at all. All I wanted to do was teach that person a lesson, put them in their place. And where that type of thing happens, the judge has to give a direction to the jury. And this is the direction which I want you to think about before I hand over to my colleague Lynn Ellison, who will take you through a real life case. So where that happens and the defendant is claiming that they had some other purpose to their actions, the judge will explain to the jury, firstly, that they have to be satisfied that death or grievous bodily harm was virtually certain to result from the defendant's actions. But that on its own isn't going to be sufficient for it to be a murder conviction. The jury have to then ask a second question, and if you like, apply that to the defendant. And they have to ask, did the defendant realise that death or grievous bodily harm was virtually certain? Now I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Lynn Ellison, who will talk you through the next few slides and will talk you through a real life tragic case that took place in Prestatyn. Before I do that, I just want to give you a little warning that some of this footage and content is not suitable for young children. So Next slide, please, and over to Lynn.
Hello, my name's Lynn Ellison and I look forward to meeting you all when you come to the university to study law, and I'll be teaching you criminal law. Now I want you to picture the scene. This is a converted house, and upstairs in this converted house in Prestatyn in North Wales lives Leanne Shears, who's 20 years old, and her partner Liam Tindrell, who's 23, their baby son Charlie, who's just 15 months, and on the particular day in question, Leanne's nephew Bailey, who was 4, and Leanne's niece Sky, who was 2. Now downstairs lived Melanie Smith, who was 43 years old, who did not get on in any way with Leanne and Liam upstairs. She was very jealous of their happy relationship and extremely irritated by the fact that Leanne would park the pushchair for the baby in the shared hallway between their 2 accommodations. And one day it all got too much for Melanie, who had spent some time threatening to set fire to various people's houses with their children inside, and Melanie set fire to the pushchair. So what happened is it all got out of hand, and unfortunately Leanne, little Bailey and Sky died in the fire. Liam was rescued and Charlie was rescued, but they both died later in hospital. So all 5 of the people who were upstairs died in the fire. Now, Melanie pleaded not guilty, and I want you to think about what Margaret said to you about what Melanie's primary intention was. Now, what was it? It was to send a message to the people upstairs: do not park your pushchair in the hall, by setting fire to it. Obviously a very extreme thing to do. But if you were on the jury and you were asked to decide whether or not Melanie intended the result, then if you asked yourself that question, if you set fire to a pushchair underneath a flat with only one door to escape, is death or GBH virtually certain? And having answered that question, would then need to consider whether Melanie herself would have realised that death or GBH was virtually certain. Now, the end result of this case was that the jury found Melanie guilty of all 5 murders. Now, we would like to just show you a short report from the BBC, and as Margaret said, this contains some disturbing footage, so please don't let any little children see it. But we're going to show you this and then return to ask you a further question after this footage.
These photos show how severe the fire was, a wall of flame from the bottom of the stairs up through the top of the house, trapping the victims in their flat. After last week's guilty verdict, today's 5 life sentences gave the families of those who died what they've wanted all along.
This has been a long and painful road for all the families, and while nothing can ever bring back any of our children or grandchildren from this terrible tragedy, there is some comfort knowing that justice has been done. Although no sentence could ever truly reflect the severity of the crime.
We wish that things had turned out differently on October 19th, 2012. So my babies and my nephew Charlie will still be here, happy playing and growing. And we wish we could hear them laughing like they did every day. Leanna, Liam and Charlie would still be growing as a young family that's trying to make their mark on the world. But instead, one despicable person has taken it all away.
This fire service reconstruction shows how quickly a blaze in a pushchair can take hold. Melanie Smith started such a fire with deadly effect. Seen here just 2 hours before the arson attack, the 43-year-old mother of 5 was angry after accusing her partner of having an affair. Fueled by alcohol, she took out her frustration on her upstairs neighbour, Leanna Shires, resentful of her happy relationship with her boyfriend, Liam Tindrell. He called 999 as he fought to save his family. Help us, he said. Somebody's done it on purpose. The operator responds, OK, can you talk to me? I'm sending the fire engine to you now, but need more information. Then Liam is heard in the background shouting, oh my God, we're gonna die. He survived long enough to tell police Melanie Smith was responsible.
That was really important to us, as well as the other evidence. But Liam was particularly important to us, and the importance of getting that evidence in the court process.
The judge, Mr. Justice Griffith Williams, said setting fire to the pushchair was an act of exceptional wickedness, almost unparalleled in its consequences. For those who had to hear the evidence of the 999 calls, the horror of those moments as Leanna and Liam faced the awful inevitability of their imminent deaths will forever be etched on their memories. Melanie Smith will serve 30 years before being considered for release, and tonight there are calls for a review of fire safety regulations in existing homes.
So back to me now then, and hopefully you've got some sense of what's required for murder from that really quite horrific case. But there's somebody else that might be to blame here too, and that's the landlord. And here the landlord was a guy called Jay Littrott, who was also a part-time firefighter. And he, along with his colleagues, actually attended this fire and tried to rescue the 5 people trapped upstairs. As Lynn mentioned earlier on, the difficulty here was that the accommodation had been divided into 2 flats. That meant that there was just one way to exit the property, which was down the stairs. Here, no fire door had been put in place between the ground floor flat and the top stairs flat. A basic fire door would cost less than £100. That would have given this family 30 minutes, and that might well have been the crucial difference between them dying or living. The door that was in place here was described in court as being woefully inadequate. It was made of glass and thin wood and failed to act as any sort of barrier between the community hallway and the stairs. In fact, what happened was that the effect of this operated to funnel heat and smoke upwards to the top flat like a chimney. Jay Littrott was initially charged with gross negligence manslaughter. In order to be liable for that, the prosecution would have to show that he had a duty, which clearly he had, that there was a breach of the duty, which clearly there was, that this had caused death, and clearly it had, and also that the negligence by him was so gross that it should be regarded as criminal. In fact, on the second day of his trial, the proceedings were stopped, and the Crown Prosecution Service opted instead to prosecute him for breaches of health and safety regulation. He did, however, still receive a 15-month jail sentence, and he also lost his job from the fire service. Hopefully, having had a brief look at both murder and manslaughter, it will have increased your interest to study law and come to Wolverhampton and meet all of us, perhaps at an open day in the future. I'll hand back to Lynn now just to finish the session.
Thank you all for watching this. It's been good to virtually meet you. And if you have anything that you would like to ask us at all about the course, about the law school, about anything to do with law, please do get in touch with us. So you can see here, Sutnindo is the head of the law school. His email address appears there. Margaret Walsh, who is head of undergraduate law, and my details as well, if you just want to ask me anything about how the course runs. So any one of us, please do get in touch with us at any time. And we do look forward to meeting you when you join us at Wolverhampton Law School. Thank you.